We continue with Genesis today as we continue in our season of ordinary time, and here we're moving into chapter 41, right? We're kind of taking a break from our previous narrative. We're talking about Jacob, and so here we're hearing about Joseph and the brothers of Joseph and their first journey to Egypt. And this famine that is happening is pretty significant, and apparently it's a reason why Abraham and Sarah took a journey to Egypt as well. We had heard about earlier, and Egypt. It's kind of hard not to know this, but Egypt was the Rome of its time. Egypt was a tremendously important nation. It was the strongest, one of the strongest nations economically at the time. And so Joseph gets appointed to be a governor kind of person, and he has this job of dispensing rations to people. And I will say something that I mentioned in my homilies at yesterday's Mass, that it is not always clear how much this narrative is a kind of a storytelling of the origin story of the people, and how much they meant it to be literally, case by case. This is what happened, is the way we would say history is today, is not always clear. But it's the origin story of the people, right? Like, how do we get to this point as God's chosen people? And as we go through that, if you read this whole story with Joseph, right? Joseph gets abandoned by his brothers. They mean to kill him because he's the father's favorite. And clearly, as we continue through this, there is kind of a forecasting of Christ, so in a sense, of the people, of the whole people, that we are, that there is this in a sense that God sends his son and we kill him, right? In a sense that we have this aggression toward each other and to God himself. And Joseph is a type of Christ who is sent to redeem his people, right? In this case, Joseph sort of saves his brothers and his family by providing them grains, and they're able to continue to live. So the things that happen in this story are very symbolic, right? They point forward as Christian commentators, as the fathers of the church read these texts, they were able to see them pointing forward to a great fulfillment in Jesus Christ. And so Joseph is an important type of Christ. And you kind of have to read the whole story here in this chapter, these chapters of Genesis, to really understand the significance of it and exactly how it all gets fulfilled. And I will say too, I think I'm allowed to say this, having been a priest a few years and working with Scripture, Joseph goes a bit ham. Joseph goes a bit ham on this apology he wants to get from his brothers. He really stretches this out to make them feel the weight of their abandonment of him. So there is that, that element to it as well, that Joseph makes his family go through a huge amount of trouble so he can eventually reveal to them that he is the person they try to get rid of, and that he has forgiven them. And so there's kind of some details in that for sure. And then we go on to our gospel today, and remember that the readings on the first and second year tracts, the readings in the Gospels are really not directly related for these days. That they're not meant to necessarily work with each other. So you have to kind of pray with the text and ask yourself, what is it saying to me? Okay, and that involves effort. You're going to have to actually read the text. You're going to have to think about, what is it trying to tell me? And, today we hear about the 12 disciples and their mission. And, why does Jesus pick 12 men? Well, that was kind of, again, a fulfillment kind of thing, right? Because there were 12 families of Israel, 12 houses, the 12 houses of Israel that formed the chosen people. And so Jesus choosing these 12 men to be apostles, right, as he gives their name, or as their names are given later, is a way of kind of keeping it in continuity with with Jacob and with his descendants and with the whole covenant fulfillment. But I do want to point out something very specifically, that they are called, they're told to go out and to pray with people, to do deliverance ministry, right, to pray for healing of body and soul. But he does not commission them to teach yet, right? He doesn't say at this point, go out and teach all nations, right? So he has them doing a few things, but he doesn't make them do a lot. And, you might wonder, does that mean anything? And it does, right? Only after Christ's death and resurrection and ascension and the completion of the Paschal mystery does he tell them to go out and teach all nations, right? There's that famous scene in Matthew 28, I think, chapter 28, that is sometimes considered the ascension as well. Christ says, go out and teach all nations and baptize them. And so he doesn't really have them teach the gospel clearly at this point. And that is because they're not fully instructed. They're not fully prepared. And so, and I just think in that there is a kind of a powerful image of God's teaching method, God preparing his people and, sending them out to minister and to build up others. And, and I think I'd like to encourage you today as you hear these readings to ask yourself, what kind of sheep you are, right? What kind of sheep are you? What kind of lamb are you? Are you one of the lost sheep? Are you a sheep who is relatively strong, who's doing well, who is trying to cooperate with God's grace? Or are you someone who is truly lost and you need a tremendous amount of help? And so, coming back to that point of humility and asking God, where am I today and how do I continue to move forward in discovering your will and in discipleship this week?